Dr. Dave, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good, good.
Beautiful, sunny Birmingham here. So, yeah.
It's been 3 years. 3 years since we last spoke. I thought it was two, but it was August 2020. So, I mean, three years.
Right.
In the middle of, well, I've been slap bang in the middle of a pandemic as well. So, you're looking well, mate.
It's well, thank you, and you too. Been on holiday, have you?
I know. I think it's a wee bit dark in here, and I've also been on holiday, but I only get the Scottish tan. It only goes red straight back to white.
Yeah, yeah, but you don't look quite Scotsman coloured at the minute, so you're clearly in the red phase. But yeah.
Aye. So when we were talking last, we were slap bang in the middle of the pandemic, and I went back and I listened to a wee bit of the chat again, and although it was a great chat, and you and I seemed to be fairly upbeat, it was a bit of the most miserable of subjects. You guys had just released Endarkenment. Obviously, there was never a live show to come from that. Everybody we knew was pretty much out of work and never knew when live music was coming back. So let's tap back into literally since the last time we spoke. Endarkenment was released, and to my understanding, no live shows ever.
No. I mean, yeah, you should rewinding a little bit. You say it was 3 years ago that we spoke, and I wouldn't have thought it was that long either. Because I don't know about you, but my internal calendar is shot to pieces since the pandemic. I mean, I'm one of those people that hasn't really got much of an idea of when things happen. I remember that things happen,
yes,
but I've no idea when it was. If it's 6 months ago, 10 years ago, I get confused between the two. But the pandemic has made that so much worse.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I was on holiday because I went away for a couple of days at the start of like March, end of February sort of thing, 2020. That feels like it was about 6 weeks ago.
Aye.
and
then other things feel like they were even longer ago, because it just seems like it really did. People have got no. When I try to think back of the damnation that did happen, the damnations that didn't happen, and I'm a bit like, what freaking year was that? So yeah. You guys, so you dropped that album. It was very well received, critically praised, but talk me through the frustration at that point, if there was frustration of actually being able to do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not necessarily the most, Motorhead, Clockwork kind of bands. So, it wasn't that we'd already got 2 years of touring already booked up and all of that kind of stuff, fucking Metallica, whatever, anything like that. But we didn't expect to just do nothing, it's absolutely nothing. I remember when I was a little kid, an analogy. I remember when I was a little kid, my granddad, he was in the war, and he'd still got his gun in the shed. Right, he never went away. He was like home guard business, and he had a rifle. And probably like the late 50s or something. A few years after it had all kicked off, he saw a rat in the garden, or rather, my nan, his wife, saw a rat in the garden. She said, Alf, there's a rat in the garden. You've got to do something. So he went out to the shed. He got his gun, and he'd never fired it during the actual war. So this was like 15 years of pent up, fear of what might happen if ever he pulled the trigger. And apparently he pulled the trigger. There was this enormous bang, and then this little piece of metal just like rolled down the tube and just fell out at the end of it, and the rat just went, whatever, and carried on. And weirdly, I sort of knew how he felt releasing an album that building up to. You thought it's a bit, you've done your best. Whether people like it or not, you can't guarantee that. But you've done your best. You're really confident. It's dead good. It's it's where you're at now. You feel you've got something to say, something to do. It's worth releasing an album.
Yeah.
And then it just falls.
Lead falls in the gun
a little bit. I mean, it's not strictly a good analogy because obviously people can hear it and there's reviews online, all of that kind of stuff. But there is an important part of it that just didn't exist. The bang sort of wasn't there. So
if you could go back retrospectively, you and Mick are having those chats. Then this is long before what's now transpired. But you say, would we release Endarkenment in the middle of the pandemic, or was it one of those ones? Did it still do the job that you guys wanted it to do without necessarily being able to go out there and take it to a stage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it scratched all the right itches, and it's like we wouldn't tend to position an album like in our heads as somehow making some important contribution to the world or anything like that. I mean,
or even in a touring cycle, as you say, because you weren't released an album to get yourselves back out the road for 2 years.
Yeah, that's not really the way we do it. I mean, I can be a little bit pompous sometimes, but we're not that fucking pompous, you know. But nonetheless, it did kind of feel like it was, you know, it's not just making up the numbers. You know, it's not just releasing partly touring cycle with some bands. They just need product, as they would call it.
Yeah.
But partly just sort of, you know, a musical expulsion, so people have something new to concentrate on. Those sorts of thoughts didn't really apply. It still felt like somewhat fresh. Like there was a point to releasing it that wasn't just to release something, and there was. I wouldn't go so far as to say there was something we had to say or something musically we wanted to demonstrate or change the culture or anything like that. But it was real. It was there. It was lively. It was important to us. It felt good. All of that kind of stuff was all there. So in no way was it an excuse to go out playing, but it kind of felt like that would be part of it because it was a thing for the world and for us and all of that kind of, you know, exciting kind of stuff.
And so you're sitting in England, Mick's across in California. What's the conversations at that point then about like, well, were you at least happy with how it was received?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's in a way it's kind of hard to put yourself back there because everything was so mad, everything was so on fire. You know, it was really weird. One of the things that I was happiest about only could have happened because of the pandemic, really, which is kind of strange. But some of the things in the world that were reflected in the album, that kind of stuff, because of the way things went under the pandemic, turned out to be sort of prophetic in this weird way. You know what I mean? The disinformation campaigns, especially, you know, people like Trump in the news and all of that, drink bleach and all this business. It kind of fed into the atmosphere of the album in a weird way. So I think the album sat in the context of the pandemic maybe better than it would have sat in the context of a world without the pandemic.
Yeah, I think just the latest release. And then obviously the maybe no news to you, but it filters through at some point that Mick has decided to do his own thing, and there won't be an Endarkenment era Nathrakh for us to enjoy with both of you on stage. So how did for the folk that aren't, as much as you're willing to share with the world, for the folk that aren't one of you two, how did that all come about? How did that conversation transpire?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that Mick is spending most of his time doing now is something that he doesn't publicly put his name to. And I'm not going to do that. That'd be silly. He's one of my mates. I don't want to piss on his chips.
Yeah.
But he did have a project that he started, not necessarily just because of the pandemic, but it was around, you know, that sort of era, and it suited the way he goes about doing it, suited that kind of environment, weirdly, because it's mostly streaming and that kind of thing. And to say that it took off quite well is like an absurd understatement. You know, we are in gold discs, and you know, he ain't talking to Metal Blade or Candlelight, he's talking to Sony, or it's that kind of level how amazingly it's gone. So yeah, we are in a position that we weren't in before, where, I mean, both of us, frankly, certainly Mick, we've fallen in and out of love with playing live and that over the years.
Yeah.
And we had talked about maybe having a bit of a hiatus on that kind of thing. That might have been on the radar anyway. Because we're both a little bit nuts, basically, and it's kind of stressful doing it, and sometimes it pushes the wrong buttons, and we end up in a bad place. But whatever. So I mean, that could have been the case, but where we are now is Mick's in that place doing that kind of thing. But because of the pandemic and because of releasing an album that again, it felt like a live proposition, like a strong thing. There is this kind of sense of unfinished business.
Yeah.
You And I could stick that on the back of a shirt and put dates underneath it, and it would be kind of apt, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I mean, but I take it those conversations. Nathrakh is yourself and Mick. That's how it was. Like you obviously had live members that came and went, but you guys are a duo. The promo posters are a duo, and then Mick says, "You know what? I've got this wildly successful once side project that's now fucking through the stratosphere, and I'm not gonna commit to Nathrakh in the future." So that kind of leaves you at that point to say, right, you've got a decision to make. Or I mean, she was like, but it's also she like, oh, I don't want you to go and do that, Dave, because it was our thing. It was about like, mate, if you want, you can take this further, then bash on.
Yeah, and we did have that conversation. So I said to Mick, right, I know you haven't got a second to spare in your day at the minute, because he really hasn't. He takes over stuff,
Yeah,
everything when you've got a project that's going that well. You haven't got a second to spare. Do we what? What do you want to do? Shall we just say we're done? You know, and you've found your new love, musically speaking, and off you go. Shall we do X, Y, Z, whatever? And Mick said to me, no, I don't really want to do that. But for the time being, I haven't got a second to spare, and I don't know when the next time will be that I have. So, you know, if you think it's better to cut it down, then, you know, cut it off, then fair play. I don't want to stop you doing anything. But I said to him, no, to be perfectly honest, I don't care if it's 10 years till we release another album or something, but if it's a thing and the name is worth still having, and, you know, at some future point, we want to be back on the same page and doing things that we used to do, then cool, okay. So, you know, making some kind of weird public announcement that, you know, it's all over, or all that kind of thing, wouldn't be dramatic like that about it, but that wasn't the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah,
you know, it just is. There just isn't time in the day at the moment.
So then it's left to yourself. So
yeah, exactly.
Dr. Dave Hunt sitting in Birmingham. Are you in Birmingham or London at the minute? Birmingham still.
Birmingham. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you're a bit like, right, okay, I'm still interested. I still feel like I've got the love in my heart to do this, at least bits and bobs. So where do you go from there personally?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because it was then up to me to go whether I'm, you know, on board or whatever. But I thought, no, from the sounds of it, you know, we are both still there.
Yeah.
Just time constraints, all that kind of stuff, which is fair enough. Shit happens, you know, we're all grown-ups. So I thought, well, we've got this horrible sense of unfinished business because of this ridiculous pandemic bullshit. We've got an album that feels like it was kind of good and was worth doing stuff with. We've got the fact that we're not going to be recording for a little while, but hopefully will be at some point in the future. How do I respond to all of that all at once? And I thought, well, fuck it. As long as it's honest and as long as it's saying to people, this is what's going on, and we're not like, you know, it's not Dave and the Nathrachs or something. It's being completely transparent, treating people with a bit of respect and saying, this is what we're doing. If we can make a success of doing some shows on that basis, then that's doing some of that unfinished business stuff, I think. So I spoke to our agents about potentially, you know, what would it be if we were to do a gig? And they went, we really think people would like you to do a gig. And I was like, yeah, no, you must understand it's under these circumstances and this is the deal, and I am not willing to be a knob about it and deceive anyone, and it's going to be above board and all of that. And they went, no, we still think people would really like you to do a gig. I said, all right. However, I'll get a few awful, despicable, I was going to say a few good men, but I'll get a few despicable arseholes together. Let's do a gig. Let's see how it goes. And there was a gig that happened as a result of all of that in December last year.
That was the side one. I'll get to that. Like, if I don't keep it chronological in my own head, we'll get all over the place. So you'll get despicable individuals, as you say. So that would be our mutual friend Sam and Dave Gray. So both also in Akercock now, also too. So how did that go? Was that a sort of Metallica style, everybody coming into the studio and see who can play bass kind of thing? Or how did you, I just phoned the first two numbers that you knew could pick up a guitar and drum?
Well, I mean, because the previous live incarnation of Nathrakh, I mean, as you correctly say, Nathrakh was always me and Mick. We had guys playing with us, but, you know, they weren't the band.
Yeah.
And for different reasons. A couple of those guys had gone their own ways, and had things to do, whatever it was. So it kind of was almost starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Again. So I spoke to Sam Loynes of Akakoki and Voices fame, because way back, a long time back, when we were originally going to put together an Nathrakh live band, I spoke to Jason Mendonça, from Akakoki, about him and Blast Lord Vader, i.e. David Gray, joining us. Maybe, we kicked that kind of idea around, and then we played a few shows with them guys a couple of years ago.
Yep.
With Nathrakh and Akakoki, like double header kind of thing, and it had all been dead good, and we've been chuffed, and I think Dave might actually have said, if ever you need a drummer, that kind of thing. So I was like, right, we're almost at starting from scratch. The previous lead guitarist Dan Rose is still on board. But other than that, starting from scratch, who do I know who's into this shit, who's well on board, and is a diamond geezer, as I presume they would say down south, weirdos. I'll speak to Sam, see how he's feeling, see if he's, if the contact goes into them guys and all that kind of stuff. And it was a little bit dodgy for a little bit. Sam was well up for it straight away. And then it was, is Dave going to come? Is exit? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? Who might we do for this? And then, he spoke to David Gray, and he was bang up for it. And the bass player from Voices, Dan, bang up for it. So we're like, got a band.
Yeah. Was that a weird process for you as well? Because now you're the guy who's left trying to piece it all together. I'm at this sort of high school. I hope the girl likes me and likes my band, Well, Dave, will you come and drum for me? So was it a and that must have been an odd feeling, trying to rebuild this band, because Nathrakh's a name signed to Metal Blade. I mean, one of the biggest festivals in the world, going to headline fucking 2,500 capacity arena at Damnation. It's like you're like, oh, but also nobody likes a rejection, You're a bit like, guys, you want to come and drum and play the guitar in my band? How was that for you?
I don't know. I'm fairly insensitive to that kind of thing. The first, I remember back in the day when me and Mick were thinking about playing live, right? I said we spoke to Jason and Dave before, but the very first drummer we ever saw who we thought could play Nathrakh, because there's quite a few drummers who could now. Yeah. Back then, nobody could fucking do it. You got younger guys who've grown up doing blast beats, or you've got older guys who were just legends in their own right, but they weren't growing on trees at the time. And we happened to go and see a gig of Archon in Faustus, French black metal band. And I remember saying to Mick while we were watching it, going, he could do Nathrakh, he could. And Mick was like, yeah, I think he actually could. Shall we ask him? Like, well, yeah, let's ask him. So I think it was Mick who was a bit pissed that night. I don't remember, but I think it was Mick that did go and ask him. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, I might be up for that. He'd heard the name, smaller proposition at the time, but he'd heard of the name. He was like, okay, I'll speak to my guys, see what they say. And then he came back about 5 minutes later and went, no, I'm not going to be doing that. so our live career just started with rejection. That was our basis, that was our fundament. So if someone wasn't into it, okay, whatever, I can take it. But it was important, I will say that it was important to have whoever it was who ended up doing stuff. It's got to be the right people. It's not just because someone can do it, but they're a knob and you don't like them, or they're musically incompatible, whatever it is. Just the sheer ability to do it isn't the deciding factor. But like I say, we've done those gigs with the Akakoki guys. They're an absolutely sound bunch of lads. And, there were links there and all of that kind of thing. So it felt really good for all of that to just coalesce. Could have been different, could have done it another way and all of that, but I was really grateful that those guys did want to do it. It was cool. It
felt quite, from an outsider looking in, it felt quite natural. You know what I mean? It felt like it did fit and it made sense. And also, to give credit to Sam and Dave, especially, like, they are names in that scene as well. So it was also a case of, well, you're going to go and see these guys that have done this with all these other bands and put on a performance on stage. So it added a wee bit to it. So this is all happening in the background where you guys are like, okay, let's see what's happening. In the meantime, Damnation 22 would happen, because you don't play the side gig until December that year. So then you come along to Damnation as a guest with your partner, and I was standing in that balcony thinking, what the fuck is going on here, man? Like, why are 5,000 people going mental with Pig Destroyer? So as that someone who played with Mistress in 2006 at Damnation and done every stage in between at every venue, what was your thoughts walking into that arena? Like, what the fuck are these idiots playing it?
No, I will be more charitable to you than that. I didn't think it was quite that ridiculous. But as you know, a pretty experienced veteran of Damnations over the years, kind of like, you know, friend of the festival sort of thing, I was acutely aware that it was a different proposition.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite as financially aware as I'm sure you were. Like, you know, is this going to cost me my fucking marriage, mortgage, whatever? You know, I can imagine there was a bit of that behind the scenes, but it's different. You know, the first one I was at was Chili's Rock World, which was in Manchester, but it wasn't the size of the Beck Arena.
And downstairs, so it was the music box. We couple of crates to stand on for a stage, and then people pressed against you, you know. So it's like, so I mean, what was your? I said you're an artist that's done it. You never played Damnation last year, but they still. Did you enjoy the experience, or did the people that you were speaking to enjoy the experience? Because it is difficult, and was something we were acutely aware of. A Damnation does have an atmosphere, and it's not without its problems going to a tin can and trying to recreate that atmosphere. And credit to the fan base, they're the guys that create it. It's not me. I mean, we can do the bill and do as much as we can, but it's the fans that came and made it feel still like a Damnation. Did you still get a wee essence still, or something that came from Jelly's Rock World to all the way back to a 6,000 capacity arena?
I think I did. The thing that struck me as a common thread through all of it, which is you guys and the fans as well, is a sort of, there's a degree of openness to your guys' attitude to booking stuff, and the people, a lot of the fans, there were more of them that time, but there still feels like it's kind of many of the same people, or at least people who share a certain perspective, and openness to go, these guys have booked it, I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah.
You know, even, you know, main stage, whatever, Pig Destroyer playing a Damnation. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, it was amazing in its own right to see something quite so large, because you've got that main room at the Beck Arena, it's a big old room.
Yeah.
And see something that's dear to my heart, to your heart, to the hearts of us lot, to see it writ large in that way. That's a specific thrill that the new environment made possible. I mean, watching it in a 2,000 cap place in Leeds, that's wicked as well. But seeing it felt like this is us doing something really big.
It was almost felt against the grain with it. I mean, that was I mean, not at Converge or at the Gates or these Gojira Mastodon size bands that normally played that size arena. But for me, it was the Full of Hells and the Pig Destroyers and having the 5,000 people with that. It's like, this is really feels like doing something different, really against the grain, and something that shouldn't be possible in the UK. When you're looking at it for the ball, that was my feel like, this shouldn't be possible. You shouldn't have 5,000 people watching Full of Hell. Full of Hell is supposed to be at boom.
Where's the shouldn't coming from now?
I mean, I don't know, but just reality. Everything we've done.
Reality is your response. The shouldn't is self-imposed. The shouldn't is confined by what your experience has been to date.
Yeah.
What happened was reality. What you got is this big. Whether I felt it shouldn't be or should be or anything like that, fucking happened in front of your eyes, right in front of you. You know, that was why I remember sending you an email. I was drunk at the time, but I remember sending you an email about 4 a.m. after the gig going, at what point did you look out at the size of the venue and go, we did this. You know,
Aye.
this is something that's happening that I wouldn't have thought would have been part of it. Okay, the email wasn't this long, but you know what I mean? Rewind 10 years, put yourself in that position. It's
Aye.
not plausible to you, is it?
No,
But it actually happened. There is no should. There is only it did.
You're totally right. And that point was definitely that sort of between Full of Hell and Pig Destroyer, that whole sort of what the hell is going on? Because this is, all right, no, we'll not say the shouldn't word again, but this is what you would hear shouldn't be done. It did become reality, but it was like, holy fuck. And again, credit to the fan base. It's a hell of a lot easier just to book Full of Hell than it is to get all these people to decide, right, okay, we're going to spend a couple $100 that weekend and go up and support this festival. So all credit to the fan base, and please, when you listen to this, let's do it again. You know what I mean? Let's
oh yeah, yeah, the one-off. 5 people in the dog turn up in November.
In the Nathrakh story, this is happening. It's not public to anyone that you're even trying to rebuild a band. Or it might be actually because maybe you'd announced the Nathrakh and Sai show, because that would only be in December. So the December show happens, and at that point, what's your feelings going into that? Like, if this sells 200 tickets and it feels a wee bit off, I'm done. I mean, it was good, we gave it a chance. Or are you saying, right, even if this doesn't go as well as it eventually did go, I'm in it for a few attempts to see if we can rekindle that magic we had? I mean, what was your views going into it?
More the latter, I think. Because, like I say, it was more a sense of unfinished business. It wasn't testing waters. It was like there was something that should have happened and it didn't, and I'm not content that that's the case. So it was filling a slot in the world that needed filling, as far as I was concerned. Not that anyone else would necessarily agree with that, but that was how it felt to me.
Yeah.
So if it had gone shit, well, to a certain extent, whatever. But I was open to the possibility of, if it went well, maybe we'll do some more shows after. You know?
Yeah.
Because you never know. You know, the world was a different shape. It had been a while since we'd been around, and maybe we'd been a bit too present in years before that. I don't know. Someone who's not me could probably judge that better. But there were maybes. But it was like, if it does go really well, that is a bit of a signal. That's kind of how it felt.
Yeah. And so you do that show, and so you pack the place, 800 folk show up for an Nathrakh show, great support and Sai bringing them across. How did the show go from Dave Hunt's perspective? The day, not even just the show, the whole, because it was fucking train strikes, people couldn't get to London, people were still trying to buy tickets. Really, it fell out again from Glasgow. Looking, it seemed like it was a wee bit of clusterfuck, everything but the actual gig itself.
Yeah, no, everything fell apart, basically. It was fucking terrible, especially as you're really reliant on that kind of thing. You probably get it with Damnation as well, but you're really reliant on trains for people who aren't from the local 20 miles or whatever, which for that kind of quite niche thing, I mean, obviously in the underground metal community, whatever, okay, it's the name and all of that kind of stuff, but it's nonetheless, it's not, fucking Iron Maiden playing somewhere. And the venue was a reasonably big one. It's like you say, about 800 cap venue. So like anything that could knock chunks out of people turning up there feels like a bit of a potential risk. And a train strike being announced on the day, that ain't the best thing you could hear, especially as our sound guy was coming over on the train because he's Belgian.
Oh, right.
But it turns out international trains weren't affected. It was only domestic ones. And then on the day, I was speaking to the mythology guys, our booking agents. You probably know them well, but people who might listen to this might not. But they were actually putting the gig on as the promoters. So they had, skin in the game, next on the line, that kind of stuff. And they came up to me and went, "It's just sold out."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Aye.
Okay. It wasn't a relief and I wasn't happy. It just made me shit myself more because I'm not a confident, happy to perform sort of person.
Yeah.
I have to have a bloody good drink and get deep into my angst and everything to actually be able to walk out and actually do that stuff. And that's not woe is me stuff. It's, my life ain't hard. It's just that's the way I do it.
Aye.
But it meant that reassurance was kind of nice. but it also meant, oh, there's going to be fucking loads of people staring at me.
But also, it's one of those ones that people give a shit, isn't it? I mean, like, if you're doing anything in life, in any walk of life, if people largely are going to give you a pass and okay, then well, what's the pressure? Whereas you're sold out middle of a change strike, but you hadn't played, what, by that point, 3.5, 4 years?
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to put in your shoulders. But on the stage you went, and how was it?
It was really good, actually. Yeah, it went really well. Like I say, it was sold out, and there was quite an atmosphere there, actually. Despite it being a reasonably large venue, I mean, 800, it's a fairly big room.
Yeah.
It still felt a little bit sort of powder keg kind of feeling, because what we've done in the past, sometimes when we played in London, we've played at a place called the Black Heart. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah.
But they've got a room upstairs. It's only a small place in the first place, and it's like 100 cap, something like that. And we've done that on purpose. No, I mean, you could just play at the Underworld, it's only around the corner, and that'd be fine. But no, we want to do a tiny little thing, oversold, all of that, just for that electric, keg, bomb going off sort of feeling. And all of a sudden, there was a fair chunk of that same sort of feeling going on in this great big room. And yeah, it was a bit like that.
And part of that feeling as well from the fan base that were there was like, is this it? I mean, it's like, because ultimately you're not a sales pitch type of band. You're not doing it for PR or advertising or a stunt. So they're looking at it and saying, well, maybe this is my chance. Maybe I've never seen Nathrakh before. Maybe I've seen them 10 times before, but this is my last chance. I went to Dillinger Escape Plan show like that in Glasgow. I was like, this is it. I mean, I don't think this band are coming back, so I'm giving it the 10%, the 10 out of 10 here now, and I'm going for it because I don't think I'm going to get a chance to see Dillinger again, which so far turns out to be right, unfortunately. But so I think that led into, so it was booming. I remember I spoke to Sam after it, and he's like, he was buzzing. He's like, it was, everybody was into it. The place went absolute mental. And then I think you came out by that point officially and said, right, okay, let's it's not the end. Let's see what's happened. So, was there anything between that? Were you just letting that gig happen, or what was the thinking, and when you were going to go back and say, right, guys, let's do this?
It was basically me stopping it being any more than that one gig.
Yeah.
At first, because pretty much everyone around me was going, no, we should do more of this. The lads in the band, they just want to play.
Yeah,
and they are consummate professionals and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, come on, let's go. And the agents were going, yeah, we've got interest. We can do this kind of thing. And there's me going, I don't know if I know Mick's not going to be there. I'm not sure it's right, and all of that kind of stuff. And that was why I was saying earlier about it has to be totally above board. This is the situation. That's what's happening. This is the basis on which you're coming to see us. I mean, even this idea that it could have been the last gig ever, it could have been.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say anything along the lines of, it is, you've got to buy a ticket, it's never happening again, because that would, again, be misleading people. But if it had fallen completely flat on its face, it might have been. So, there's a degree of honesty and a bit of that sentiment.
Yeah.
But it was all me just going, oh, no, I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure.
And I assume if you go on stage that night and for whatever reason, I've never been in a live band, so I'm not quite sure how that'll feel on stage, but the chemistry doesn't work. Sam has a shocker, or Dave has a shocker, or somebody doesn't like it, or they end up for no reason. I take it you don't really have the will to go and rebuild another live band again and then try, like, I mean, how many times do you want to just keep picking up the phone and try to get people's will? So as much as it's your choice, ultimately, did some things need to happen in London for you to say, no, this does work on stage with what we've built?
To an extent, I mean, without wanting to be dismissive about the other guys at all, but there are probably other people who could get to fill in or play with us or whatever. And I want to be very clear that I'm not being dismissive about those at all. They deserve every ounce of respect that anyone would give them, but it would probably be possible.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much that, there's always, I think back to Sin City, right? The phrase that popped into my head the other day, Sin City, the film, at least, not the comic. And there's a line in that, something along the lines of, I needed to breathe the fire out of my lungs. That's still going.
Yeah.
It ain't stopping. If it was going to stop, it would have stopped before now. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm still doing that. So it's not that the motivation would be missing if things weren't all perfect, and it's not that the personnel would be missing if need be. Again, I would hope it wouldn't need be, but you probably could find other people. It's not like that. It was just you said before several times, it's all about where the Damnation works. It's all about fans turning up and that kind of thing. For me, it wasn't necessarily about numbers. It's about whether it feels right with those people who do give a shit to come and watch you. Whether there's 800 of them, whether there's 5,000 at main stage of Damnation, whether there's 50 at a small gig somewhere, it doesn't really matter how many there are. It's whether that is real, whether it's valid with those guys. That was the determinant. That was the thing that made the difference. After the gig, in December, everyone's going, yeah, let's do another one. And I'm going, don't know. And it was that made me think, it's not so much that it was a sold out crowd and all that. It was that those people who were there seemed genuinely to give a shit, and that it was worth it on that basis.
Yeah. But what got you to the point then? Is it still the fire in your lungs then? Breathing the fire? Is that a case of, right, okay, that was amazing. We are going to go into 2023. We are going to take shows. And there's definitely been you mentioned a phrase earlier about being over-present. There's definitely a change in tact to what's happening when after that. Because currently do you have 3 live, well, 2 now because you just done Germany. Do you have 3 live shows on the books that are to the public?
Slovenia, actually, not Germany. But we just did one a couple of days ago. We've got
Brutal Assault.
That's Brutal Assault in about 3 weeks' time, and Damnation.
Yeah. So you go, right, okay, we're doing it, but you go back to, I assume, to mythology, because there's not, I'm part of this side of the business. I know that there's offers there. I know that people are going, even in the UK, other offers to do Nathrakh shows other than Damnation. But you must take the decision that, right, okay, I do have it's still here. I still have the energy to do this, and I want to do it. The fans seem invested. But I want to make this more exclusive. That's how it looks to me as a booker. Is that how it turned out?
Yeah. The limited number of things, kind of like not exactly like, I don't know, like some kind of victory lap or something like that, but picking out the things that we would really like to do, and not just taking all offers and all of that. Learning the power of the word no. Which, I mean, again, it's not like we're fucking Motorhead or Metallica in the first place.
Yeah.
But picking and choosing the things that we really want to do. And yeah, Damnation's on that. It'd be absurd to imply anything other. Of course, Damnation's on that list. But there are certain things that you want to go back and do, and there are certain things that you do because someone was paying you to do it, or because you wanted to be away that weekend because they're over your missus, whatever it is. None of the things in that latter category. It's all of the ones that we did actually like to go back to or do for the first time or whatever. That was the basis on which to figure out how to do stuff.
Do you sit there at the start of 2023 and Mark and Jake, the agents involved in Mythology, they come to you and go, right, okay, here's the platter. Would you, if you've got your Hellfest, your Vakins, your Brutal Assaults amongst your Damnations, everything, and you go, right, okay, so is that then, again, you, band manager, band tour manager, sole member, are you then going to everybody, right, what's available, what can we do, what's everybody up for and interested in, well, how many dates we want to do, how much that conversation's happening as part of a group, and how much is like, here's the 4 dates I want to do, can you guys do these or not?
I pretty much turned around and went, bring me 3 or 4.
Bring me the heads of 3 or 4. Bring me the heads of 3 or 4 festivals.
Yeah, 3 or 4 Alfredo Garcias. Now, 3 or 4, we'll talk about that. We'll start there. Then maybe we'll see, but I'm not going beyond that to begin with. And they came back, and the one we did a couple of days ago, that was Terminator. That used to be called Metal Days. There were quite a few people who used to go to Metal Days. It was a bit of a bigger thing. schism, split, whatever, none of my business, but it's in the same place where Metal Days used to be. It's a place dear to certainly Sam's heart, who's playing guitar for us now. And I've been there 10 years ago this year, all of that kind of stuff. Pick that one. Okay. Damnation's on it. Yeah. Damnation's one of them. And it was literally that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It absolutely was not. Go and get everything, come back to me and I'll pick off the list. It was no, it was, we're only doing a limited number of stuff, then we'll look.
Yeah.
And we'll see. And as it turns out, there are a couple of things that we would have liked to have got to that we couldn't for various reasons. So we might do, some more shows past those that are announced so far, but at no point is it going beyond bring me a few and we'll talk about that kind of thing. It's pretty limited.
And obviously we've got a great relationship with the bands you've played in, Nathrakh in particular, and Damnation. So you're looking at, you've done it. You've done every stage, you've done the main stage, you've done practically headlined the second stage before when in a smaller venue. So you're looking at that and saying, right, okay, I've just seen that new venue and we fancy, because what did happen in my head was there's this earlier slot, this Pig Destroyer Full of Hell slot on the main stage. I was very excited about for Nathrakh, but then I was just equally excited about this sort of headline slot on the second stage. And honestly, whatever you guys said, I'd be like, I ultimately don't care. Let's get this band on this stage and cause some carnage. So what was your thinking with that? Or is that something the booking agents decided for you? Or did you go, nah, I fancy that? The headline slot exclusively in the UK at the second stage of Damnation's what we want.
They came back and went, you're right with an exclusive. I'm like, yeah, if we were going to do an exclusive in the UK, then Damnation is what I would want to do for that. And then they went, how about headlining the second stage? And I went, yeah, go on then. I didn't really have to think beyond that, because I mean, when I was there last year, one of the guys, it was late, but yeah. one of the lads, one of the festival family turned around and went, well, pick your slot for next year then, because obviously it was rumoured that we were doing the gig in December. Yeah. Originally, we would have been playing Damnation, but I wasn't content back at the time, because you need to book some things further in advance than others.
Yes.
So if you're booking a festival, Damnation's a certain size. I bet Hellfest's fucking line up in 2025 is mostly booked already. You know what I mean? You have to go a certain time before. And at the time when we were talking whether or not there might be the possibility for Damnation, I was too paranoid about whether it would come off and everything for obvious fucking reasons.
Yeah.
So we'd ended up missing last year, even though we did end up playing not that long after when Damnation was. That could be organised later, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, no, I understand.
By the time I was there at Damnation last year, okay, the gig that we did in December was announced, and yeah, one of the lads went, "Well, just pick your spot for next year, and what do you want to do next year then?" But when it came along, it's like headlining a smaller stage. That's always what I'd pick, to be honest. Yeah. Even though, and I know you feel a little bit of fizz about it and everything, even though Pig Destroyer, the Full of Hell, that kind of stuff, those slots felt ace to be there as a punter. I'm sure as you're the boss, but you're kind of like, you're part of it. It's definitely feeding into what you're getting out of putting the festival on in the first place. It felt wicked.
Yeah.
For me, it's always that little bit more powder keg, that little bit more.
Absolutely. It's one of those weird, because it could get that whole point, like, did we lose a wee bit of something, Nathrakh and that slot, and people aren't quite there yet. You don't land in that right sort of between just before dinner and dinner time. And festivals are cruel beast when it comes to bands, because you've seen some bands that are absolutely been great 10 times in the bounce, and they just land in that sort of awkward spot at an awkward 10, or a huge hardcore band that just arrives in daylight at 3 p.m. or something. It doesn't hit the spot. So that, I mean that's it. The safer option is headline that second tent, everybody being the tent arena, and everybody being well up for it. But at that point, it's going to be It's going to be total carnage.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily just the safer option. I mean, in a couple of weeks' time, we're doing Brutal Assault, and we're on the main stage for that. But they've got like quite a big lineup for some of the bands that are playing. So we're not on all that late.
Yeah.
And it will still be light and all of that kind of stuff. But then you look at the lineup. I think the band on after us is Terror.
Yeah.
And then after that, on the same stage, we've just left its Deicide and stuff. But you can't really turn around and go, well, I'm better than that. I mean, of course you can't do that, but I'll give it a go.
Aye.
I mean, have it at the main stage. I'm not going to run away from it and go, no, put me in the little one all the time and all of that.
Oh.
It swings and roundabouts. Sometimes it's appropriate to do one thing or another. But having been there at Damnation last year, I quite like the look of that.
I mean, let's not. I mean, let's not put down the city. I mean, as I say, it's more than 2,500 people going there. It's bigger than.
You know what I mean?
The previous Damnation's main stage. You know what I mean? It's like it's a big ass room that decapitated and the spine.
It doesn't feel like an aircraft hangar though. When you're in that room, if you're considering buying a ticket for that, but without being explicitly on that kind of level, when you're in that room, it feels like a gig. It doesn't feel like a warehouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or at least when I was there. And I was there quite early. I think I saw Distant. I think Oceano.
Jesus, you were there for those opening then if you saw Distant because they were the opening band.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it fills up more as the day goes on, of course. But as you're getting through the bill, it feels like a gig. It has an intimacy to it and all of that kind of stuff. It ain't just 2,500, 3,000, whatever it is. It ain't just some big space. It feels.
And it's weird because I've been in that venue a lot for a lot of different venues, especially raves and stuff, or some of the throwback covers bands. And see if you only get 2,500 people in there between the rooms and outdoors in the summer, you're a bit like, I mean, it's fucking terrifying basically because you're like, we need to make this work for grindcore. So it's it's a tough one. So Dave, pleasure again to have you back on, mate. It's been too long. So I actually wanted to get this whole exclusive, like, is there ever going to be Nathrakh music ever again in the distant future? And you kind of nailed that one right off the bat, mate.
All right, yeah, sorry about
that. First, let's start with tour plan. So you're looking at that right now. You're going, we're doing these shows, 3 or 4 shows. I take it that one in Slovenia just went well. We've got Brutal Assault in a few weeks. Damnation's going to be a corker. And then is that case of, right, okay, 2024, guys, if you've got the same sort of, I might do 4 or 5 different ones. And is that what fans can expect? Or is it really going to be, let's get to the end of 2023 and then reassess?
I'm willing to take about 2 years as the lifespan of unfinished business, because that's about the time between albums.
Yep.
That. So we have got one in for next year, unannounced yet.
Okay.
But only one. And we are looking at some other stuff that could come along, but we are in the handful territory rather than going mental next year or anything. And it still counts, like I say, it's stuff would have been nice to get to this year, couldn't do, but we'll do it next year, that kind of thing. Once we get to that point, so end of next year, something around then that's where I go, where are we?
Where are we? And because you're mentioning that would be like, what would be an album cycle in your usual Nathrakh world, where you and Mick are the ones that are out there playing that music live, and then you feel like, okay, well, that's a natural end to where that album's been. Whereas you're now with a touring band where everything will feel fresh, and you'll be still picking up a lot of new fans where everything feels fresh. So how did that set list look in Slovenia? Was that a real across the back catalogue, or was it quite Endarkenment heavy?
No, it's across the lot. Because I mean, it's no one wants to go and see a band they've loved for years only play songs off the new album. No one wants that. The band always want to do it, but no one wants that. But at the same time, I would insist on the relevance of newer stuff and there being a point, listening to it and featuring it and making a fuss about it and all that kind of stuff. I definitely wouldn't not that anyone in particular does, but sometimes later in Motorhead's career, it's kind of like, yeah, we'll do one off the new album, but we know it's pointless.
Yeah.
I would never be in that position, like, but no. So it seems right to spread things across everything, you know.
Aye. And I think that's what 99.9% of Nathrakh fans hope for as well. You know, Endarkenment is an incredible record, but you're still, everybody wants a wee bit of that submission is for the week, love, and everything in, everything in between. And then to round up, to go full circle, then the hope is from the fan base, and not even so much a hope for you, but the reason you've kept Nathrakh as a live prospect, as a prospect at all, is because Mick's never stopped being part of Nathrakh. He just doesn't have the time for Nathrakh right now. And hopefully at some point down the line, there is a bit of time and there might be new Nathrakh music to come.
That would certainly be what we talked about. I mean, fuck knows what's going to happen. We didn't think there was going to be a pandemic, for God's sake. So, you know, let's not get too far into the clairvoyancy business. But yeah, like I say, we had that conversation, and it was like, what? Why say we're done? Why do that? You know.
Yeah.
So as far as we're concerned, anything's possible, and yeah, it's just when there's time. But we'll see.
If Tool can go a decade or more between albums, I mean,
I think Testament did 14 years, did they?
So, like, just go with that approach. Like, don't say it. Like, but listen, the next album, the Nathrakh album comes in 14 years. That's how it was always planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, and it'll be entitled "The Agony of the Zimmer Frame" or something like that.
As I said, mate, you're looking good. You're looking good. So there'll be no Zimmer Frame for you anytime soon. Listen, again, lovely to catch up. Really looking forward to November. Are you getting up for? You getting up for the Friday? Are you going to come and catch the boys with Applecock on the Friday?
I'm actually talking to the lads at the minute about whether or not I'll be able to do it. So it'd be nice to. I don't know, but I'd hope so. It's Corran's on
I know
doing, isn't it? So,
I know. I mean, in that night as well. I mean, it's pretty fun. I mean, it's just a second day of Damnation, ultimately rebranded. So I'd be good to be at least to that night as well. Not that you're not going to have a few drinks before you go on stage, but I'm sure there's a different sort of pressure build up before you go on a live show to
absolutely. Yeah, I'm a fucking nervous wreck the whole day before we do a gig. To be on a day where I've got nothing to do, that sounds quite nice. Yeah,
enjoyable. Maybe one day I'll get to do. Maybe Damnation will be successful. There will be someone who can be me, and I can just go and enjoy it. Bloody, I can just go and
when you've got yours in a frame, yeah, maybe.
So in our 3 years' time, we'll do this again. All right, big chap.
Yeah, works for me, mate. Yeah, sound.
Speak soon.